Some skills that you're going to have to show when you do your research paper is covered on page 105, if you can turn to that. Summarizing, paraphrasing, and quoting. So here's the deal. When you're doing your research, you're finding information from your source and you want to put it in your paper. Well, you can't just simply take the entire source and just put it in the paper. That's not you. That's just the source. So you'll have to interpret what the source says. You'll have to rewrite what the source says, and you can rewrite it in two ways. One is called summarizing. Pretty obvious. If you have a 10-page source, whatever it is, a video or whatever, and you want to just hit the highlights of it, that's summarizing. The danger, of course, is that maybe you're leaving out too much information. I may say, well, where's all the details? So you don't want to do that too often, but you may summarize a 30-minute video and get down to just 7 or 8 minutes that you thought was really good. So fine, do that. So that's summarizing. That's taking a long piece and squashing it down. Now, when you squash it down and you get just the bare bones of it, you're going to leave out names and dates and addresses and percentages and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? Because those are details, and you're just trying to give the big picture. So that's summarizing. You're going to have to summarize right at the end of your research paper. I'm asking you to summarize your research paper, so you have to be able to pull off that skill well, too. The other thing you're going to do is paraphrase. What's paraphrasing? That's when you come across, let's say, a page of information, and you like it all. You want to have it all in your paper. That's paraphrasing. You're going to have to rewrite it. Make sure you rewrite it. You can't steal the information the way the author has it. That's plagiarism. We'll be talking about that. But put it in the paper almost line by line by line by line. You like everything in there, and that's all going to come up in your paper. Make sure it's in your own style of writing. But that's paraphrasing. Okay, so does that make sense? The difference between the two. Sometimes you summarize, sometimes you paraphrase. All right, bottom of the page. Back to 105. I want you to show me that you are a close reader and you're going to use some quotations from your sources. But you have to do them in a way that is effective. And so I'm going to give you some ideas here at the bottom of 105. One is when you introduce your source and you're going to use the author, Mark Twain or whoever, don't just use the word says, 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 says. I want to show you an example of how you can avoid that. Flip the page, 106. What you have here is some information I took from a source, and this person did some research. And so do you see the dark print, the bold on page 106? Those are quotations that this author, I didn't write this author used when he took some information from his sources. So look what he does. He doesn't always use the word says. Go down into the 1, 2, 3rd paragraph. His decision to become an artist was born less out of artistic inspiration they write. You see that word write? That's a verb instead of the word says. Look at the next paragraph. All this may be as Lee claims, not Lee says. Okay, look at the bottom of that paragraph. Finally, complains Ashton. You notice they're giving a lot of different verbs besides says. Look at the next paragraph. Landau concludes. Well, that's different. Stay in that paragraph. These paragraphs, she speculates. So you've got all these different words. So please, please use some different word than just says, says, says every time you're doing a quotation. Okay, back to 105. Secondly, see if you can do what's called a blend. A blend says, I'm going to use part of a sentence that I'm taking, but I don't want the whole sentence. I'm going to have part of it be me, and they'll go right into my quotation. So what would that look like? I'm back to 106. Look at the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph again. All this may be, as Lee claims, an attempt to take these people. Do you see the up to the word "and"? That's the author, and then the quotation starts. The bold starts there with the word "attempt." That's a small letter A because it's not the beginning of a sentence. So the person that wrote this went to his source, clipped out a part of a sentence, not the whole sentence, and put it in there. Same thing in the next paragraph. Landau concludes that no comma, no capital letter, quotation mark, small letter P, and there goes the quotation. Practically every artistic decision. This is such a nice way to do a quotation. That will impress me no end. I would be delighted if you could pull that off, because it tells me that you can find just a part of a sentence is powerful, and that's what you want to focus on. So part of the sentence is you, and it leads very smoothly. There's no break at all, right into the quotation. Okay, let's go back to 105. Know how to use brackets. What do they look like? They're the ones that look like this. They're not parentheses. They're squared off. And you'll use a bracket when you have a quotation and you want to interject something of your own thinking right after a particular word or particular phrase. Now, why would you do that? Well, what if the author uses a foreign word? Something in French or something in German, and you realize the readers aren't going to know what that word is, but you think it's important, so you check it out, and you find out. You put the bracket and you put your translation of that word that was quoted. Or let's say you're reading about something and you want to use the source, and the source uses initials of some kind of organization. You don't think the reader knows what that organization is. You can put that in brackets. So for example, you're reading about a space program, and it says NASA something something something, and this is in your quote. You might put a bracket there and go NASA bracket National Aeronautics and Space Administration. So use brackets if you need to. That's useful. Number 4, ellipsis. That's if you, those are those 3 dots in your quotation. That's if you're leaving a part of the sentence out. So you don't want to use the whole sentence for some reason. You don't think the middle part's useful. You'll have quote, sentence, ellipsis, and then the remainder of the sentence. It just tells the reader that you're giving them an incomplete sentence. And then finally, what do you do if your quotation is more than 4 lines long? Well, first, don't have a lot of these. Maybe 1 at the most. 2 is starting to get questionable. If you start putting tons and tons of these long quotations, again, you're disappearing from your paper, and you don't want to do that. But there may be some situation where you love this quotation and it's more than 4 lines long. Then follow what it says here. You indent every line of the quotation on the left side. Just hit that tab key all the way down. Double space it, so don't change your spacing. Don't use quotation marks. Isn't that weird? Don't do it. You introduce the quotation, if it's more than 4 lines, you introduce it with a complete sentence that ends with a double dot. Okay, so you're going to put a colon. So here's what it'll look like. You'll say, let's go back to Mark Twain. Mark Twain once criticized Congress, colon. Do you see that that was the sentence? You could have put a period there, but you're starting a long quotation. So Mark Twain once criticized Congress, colon. Then you have your long quotation. Then you go back to whatever it is you're talking about. So I hope this is helpful. I know this is kind of a quick run through, but I just want you to feel comfortable with the idea of summarizing and paraphrasing. You're going to have to know both skills when you write your paper, and using quotations effectively. Please have some quotations in your paper. It lets me know that you're a close reader. It lets me know that you're thoughtful, that you think something is said so well and so interesting, you don't want to mess it up. So there it is, and that's you. You're saying, I like this a whole lot. I want this in my paper. Okay, so I hope that's helpful.